Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is Election Edge Wednesday's edition. 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock out west, and we have had another 24 hours of incredible news related to this 2024 election, and we are going to dive right into it. I've got a special guest today, Daniel Bobinski, joining me from the great state of Idaho. Daniel, welcome to the show. Before we get started, give the viewers and listeners a little bit of your background. And before I go, and remember, we are streaming at Patriot TV Network on X and on YouTube. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Honored to be on. So a background on me, I was born and raised in Chicago. I always had an interest in politics. I guess that happens when you're growing up in Chicago. I ended up joining the Navy. Ended up in Southern California, did a couple of deployments, and then stayed in California for a while, and then moved to Idaho back in '98. I gotta tell you, always being a political junkie, keeping my nose in things, but what was making me money was I really got into leadership and started teaching leadership and corporate training and things like that. And that's been my bread and butter for the past 35 years. And about, I'd say 5 years ago, my largest client was AT&T, and they called me up one day and said, "Yeah, you've been with us for 10 years, but we're going to do everything you're doing for us. We're going to start doing through AT&T University." And I had made the mistake of half my income being wrapped up with AT&T. So I lost a little bit of money there. And I was reading one day an article at Uncover DC when they were just starting out, Tracy Beans over there. And I went to go read the article, and up popped a little flyer, and it says, "Are you a writer? We're looking for writers." And as you can see over my shoulder, I've got a couple of books. Yes, I'm a writer. And so I emailed her and said, "Hey, I'm a writer. I could use a little income." And so she hired me on, and I got my start there, just being able to write about politics. And God kind of moved me into this realm. And kind of like what Yoda says, forever shall it rule your destiny, so I can't go back. But I love being able to comment on the culture and the political situation, and ended up connecting with Alan Keyes and getting my own show, Keep the Republic, and then doing podcasts and terrestrial radio and writing, and it started up True Idaho News, and here I am now.
Well, first things first, I want to thank you for your service to our country first and foremost. Daniel, let's get right into these issues, and I want to talk a little bit of economics. We've been talking about it for the better part of this campaign, because nothing ever comes out of the Harris campaign. But there was some interesting news on Wall Street today. 818,000 jobs that the administration had been touting, Bureau of Labor Statistics, vanished. They did not happen. Now, at the end of the day, it didn't really have a lot of effect on Wall Street, but here's some of the reasons that I want to talk about it. Goldman Sachs made reference to the point that part of the problem with that discrepancy is the approximate, Goldman used this number, 300,000 to 500,000 illegal immigrants, which were counted in those numbers. Now, to give you a little backdrop about how they calculated it, the states, basically the state unemployment tax records, feeds into this federal database, and that's where they come up with this. Well, lo and behold, illegal immigrants are not collecting unemployment when they drop off the rolls, but to nobody's surprise, a lot of the illegal immigrants coming into the country are taking some of those jobs, a big chunk of them. So whereas the Biden administration, Daniel, had touted there were 2.8 million jobs created, and this time period, folks, is from April 1st to March 3rd, April 1st of 2023 to March 31st, 2024, 1 year time period, and in this past March. So, Daniel, to have the government come out and state this on day 3 of the Kamala coronation, I don't think it's the best news that they were looking for.
No, it's not. And when you think about those numbers, 800,000, that boils down to about 16,000 people per state that they're saying was employed, but they're not employed. So there's, on average, 16,000 people. But I also, when I was reading that story, saw that the last time they had to downgrade that far was back in 2009. Well, who was president in 2009? And I remember talking with a friend of mine in the Department of Labor who was saying, yeah, they're whispering in the hallways that the public number is, 12% unemployment or 10% unemployment. These are the real number that nobody's talking about is probably about 24, 25% unemployment. So I really don't trust the government's numbers. So when I see these numbers, anyways, when I come out, I've become kind of calloused, I guess, when I see these numbers, because what really is happening, we don't know. They're always going to be feeding us what they want us to hear, and they change the way they define unemployed or employed, and it really is, I think, a disservice to the American people, and the people at the top are trying to keep their jobs and make things look good. That's our problem.
Well, it's even worse than that, because at a time when this narrative feeds right into what Donald Trump is advocating, where he is saying that for a lot of Americans, the economy is not as strong as those on Wall Street would like you to believe it is. Yes, we've seen an uptick in the unemployment rate, but it's still under 4.5%. And historically, those are good numbers. But the problem is, when a lot of these jobs are going to illegal immigrants, which are coming in and, they'll get their ID card, and I always hear my liberal friends, yeah, but they're paying taxes and not getting benefits. There's some truth to that. And they're also accepting wages much lower than if they weren't there than other Americans. Why do you say that, Mark? It's simple supply demand. Right now, we have such an influx in supply of labor, cheap labor coming across that border, that it drives down those wages for that segment of the population. It's not affecting people with PhDs or master's degrees or the Democratic constituency of, quote, college educated, high educated professionals, lawyers, accountants. It's not affecting them, but it's affecting certain other segments of the population. And therefore, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump used to say, rising tide lifts all boats. So by definition, those wages, which are being fueled by that illegal immigration, are hurting American workers. And Donald Trump has been stating that on the campaign trail religiously over the past 30 days. And so even the Communist News Network, CNN, came out with a headline that says, this may not be a big deal on Wall Street, but 818,000 jobs vanishing is no help to Kamala Harris. Not only that, Daniel, but she came out, we saw her communist proposal about wage and price controls on grocery stores, who, oh, by the way, have a profit margin of 1.8%. And then she tried to talk about how she was going to punish people that didn't do it the way the government wanted. She advocated raising the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21%. And then, Daniel, to make things worse, sort of the creme de la creme, if you will, she wants to tax unrealized capital gains on wealthy people. Daniel, if that's not one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard, I don't know what is. What are your thoughts on her economic plans?
I think you nailed it. It's very much a socialistic perspective, communist perspective. I've kind of started using the phrase neo-Marxist because I think kind of like Marxism is passe to a lot of people now. It's a lot of these words get overused and whatnot. So now we have to switch it. But it gets people thinking, what is a neo-Marxist? So we can now define that. And part of the neo-Marxist plan is to tear everything down so you can build it back up again. It's always the way that the communist plan works: tear it down and then build it back up. So here she wants to do these taxes on unrealized capital gains, and I got to thinking about that. It's like, okay, so I'm going to invest in something. I've got a lot of capital. I'm going to invest, and now the value of whatever I've invested in has grown phenomenally, and they're going to tax me on money that I haven't collected yet. Okay, so now let's say her plan goes into effect and I have to pay that tax. So I pay that tax. Well, what if I still have that investment and I still haven't collected on it, and all of a sudden the value of said investment goes down? Maybe the bottom drops out of that market or that company goes under, where I lose all that investment. So what happened? I had to pay tax on something that I'm never going to get. Does somebody ever get a refund? Of course they're not going to get a refund. So this whole plan is just a way to get more money into their federal coffers. These people in the uniparty, and I look at that and I say that with purpose, people on both sides, the R and the D side of the aisle, the uniparty, they just love those tax dollars so they can invest in some new program or create some new program. I use the word invest with quotes. They're going to create some new program so they can look good to their constituents. I brought home the bacon to this community. I did this for our state, XYZ, reelect me so I can get all the perks and get the seats of honor. And they're not really doing anything. For years, Mark, I've said that they've been abdicating their responsibility. When you look at the Constitution, the role of Congress, they are not doing it. They're writing these little agency creations. They send it off to the executive agency for them to manage it, and Congress is not doing their job. They need to take this back from Kamala Harris. They need to take it back and say, no, you can't do that.
Oh, and I think you're spot on. I mean, as far as the Marxists and the communists, they will do everything they can to tear down the country. I mean, think about this. Under the Biden administration, they put us through 20% inflation, all these crazy rules that they're proposing. They opened up our southern border. 12.5 million illegals came across. I mean, if you're not trying to destroy the economy with 20% inflation, I don't know what you're trying to do. If you're trying to have open borders, which clearly what their policy is, and for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to sit here and say, well, we have a secure border, I mean, it's laughable. I mean, we do not have a secure border. They're the ones responsible. And when I hear this garbage about, well, on day one, with the Harris administration, we're going to do this. What's wrong with that scenario, folks? There are no public policies on the Harris administration, what it would be. Yes, she's named a team of economic advisors. Many of them are leftist. So we don't know what her positions are, but we do know that the few times she's opened her mouth, she's said really, really dumb stuff. And to say that the border is secure, Daniel, this border is not. And to tie in that piece we were talking about illegal immigrants, Madam Producer, if you could cue up that clip so we can show what's really happening at our southern border. Folks, this is why you're having all these illegals coming across and they're taking American jobs.
Hey guys, good morning. Bill Malugin here in Normandy, Texas, a tiny little town on the north side of Eagle Pass. And as you can see behind me, we have another group of several hundred migrants crossing illegally here. This is the third time in the last 4 days we have seen this during these early morning hours. This is going to be a group of several hundred. Hola, ¿de dónde son?
Dominicano.
Cuba, Nicaragua.
Dominicano.
Hola, ¿de dónde son?
Dominicano.
Dominicano. ¿De dónde son? Venezuela? Dominicano. Hola, ¿de dónde son?
Dominicano.
Dominicano. All right, so we're getting a lot of Dominican Republic. Cubano. ¿Qué?
Dominicano. Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. ¿De dónde son?
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. ¿De dónde son? Hola, ¿de dónde son? Nicaragua. Okay. So this is the first little batch that has come through. We've still got a lot more people walking up. Ed, if you can pan over to the left right here, we still have several hundred more walking up. But as you can see, almost all of these people are single adults. Once they cross the river, Border Patrol escorts them into this processing area. They've only got one bus right here right now, which isn't going to cut it. And most of these people, they're showing up here to turn themselves in because they know they will be released into the U.S. after processing. That is why they are surrendering themselves. A lot of these countries like Cuba, Nicaragua, they are not subject to Title 42 for the most part. So they know they're not going to be expelled back to Mexico. And as you can see, this is going to be pretty much a never-ending line as far as the eye can see at the moment right now. Hola, ¿de dónde son?
De Cuba.
Cuba? ¿De dónde son? Nicaragua. ¿De dónde son? Nicaragua. ¿Hay alguien aquí que tiene familia en los Estados Unidos?
Cuba.
¿Sí? Cuba?
Sí.
Cuba. All right, so as you can see, lots of Cubans, which is typically what we see here in the Eagle Pass area. A lot of Cubans and Venezuelans, but the number of Venezuelans has dropped ever since DHS announced a policy to start expelling Venezuelans. So still a lot of Cubans, a lot of Nicaraguans. Hola, ¿de dónde son? Cuba. So this plays out here almost every morning in Normandy, at least within the last week or so, and it's very likely going to continue to do so. We'll have a live report here coming up in just a few moments.
Now, folks, does that look like a secure border? It's just another example, and we're going to talk about this on the other side of the break. But for those of you who have had to endure the pain, and probably a lot of our viewers have not watched it, we do it for you so you don't have to deal with the pain. This Democratic convention has been nothing but a group of lies, false innuendos, and just downright fraud. So obviously our border is not secure. You know it. We know it. When we come back from we're going to take a break right now, 90-second break. But when we come back, we're going to dive into some of the foul-mouthed stuff that came out of Barack and Michelle's mouth last night. She wasn't so high on her horse about when they go low, we go high. Not at all. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back. Hey, folks, Dr. Kirk Elliott, big-time sponsor at Patriot.tv. Pick up the phone and call him. 720-605-3900. He is a big supporter of Patriot TV. Great company, one of the largest gold and silver dealers in the United States, and they got a professional team of people working with them to help you for your gold and silver investments. All right, Daniel, you saw that DNC convention last night. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama. I'm not going to quarrel with people that say Barack Obama is a great orator. He certainly is. But man, I got to tell you something. That stuff, the lies, the racial epitones, the crap that came out of Michelle Obama's mouth last night, I mean, it was disgusting. I mean, break it down a little bit because you had some detailed reviews of this because I got to tell you something. My opinion, of her as an individual after listening to that, it went way down. What were your thoughts on last night?
I have to up front tell you, I did not listen to Barack. I can't stomach listening to him anymore. So after Michelle, bye-bye. But I did listen to Michelle, and I actually went back and reviewed it again and took some notes because I remember watching clips from CNN where Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo were going back and forth about how they were just bemoaning how Trump always lies, and Chris Cuomo is getting very dramatic. He always lies. And I'm thinking, as I'm listening to Michelle, I'm going, this is nothing but a bunch of lies. How come we don't get any talking heads from CNN reviewing some of this stuff? So I will take that place a little bit here. And she said that we should not squander the sacrifices our elders made to give us a better future. Really, as I recall, her husband, 5 days before the election of 2008, said, "Join me as we're going to fundamentally transform the United States of America." I don't know. I don't think our elders were fighting and dying on battlefields so that Barack Obama could fundamentally transform the Constitution. And that's what the Obamas want to do. So, no, Michelle, we should not squander the sacrifices that our elders made. We should stop what you are trying to do, which is to turn our country into a communist cesspool. That's number one. Number two, I thought was very interesting. She said that her parents were suspicious of anyone who took more than they needed. Well, that got my ears up because, as I recall, Barack Obama bought a $17 million house in Martha's Vineyard, and I looked up the average price that he charges for a speech. He charges $400,000 for a speech. Now, I'm a speaker. I go out and I give keynote speeches. I charge $5,000 for a speech, which I think is actually pretty comfortable. I mean, I do some prep work and I go out and I deliver a speech and I get paid for it. Okay, but $400,000 to talk for 60 minutes? I look at what Obama said, and she said her parents were suspicious of anyone who took more than what they needed. I think her husband takes more than what he needs. And I think her parents would probably be suspicious of Mr. Barry. Then she said that Kamala is one of the most qualified persons to ever seek the presidency. And I laughed and I go, I know this is a G-rated show here, but I'm thinking of how she got her start in politics with Willie Brown, and I'm going, how qualified do you have to be to get into those positions? And you take a look at her role as the AG of California, and she's bragging that with a swipe of a pen, she can upset people's lives. I looked at that and thought, how does she qualify to be making a decision? I mean, I've been coaching leaders and executives for 35 years. I look at her leadership and I'm reading about how her staff at the White House is turned over and turned over and turned over, and they call her contentious. That's not leadership. That's not good qualified. One more, she insinuated that Trump was cutting our health care. Right. And she referenced the IVF or whatever that is. I saw a fact check on that this morning. Yes, I saw the fact check on that where Trump was actually saying he supports that and wants to encourage that. And here she's saying that he wants to take it away. It is nothing but lies. Where is Chris Cuomo going, Michelle does nothing but lie? That's all they did last night to me, was just lie, lie, lie.
Well, you're right about that. And I mean, for Michelle Obama, every time she talks about race, she makes it sound like this country, is back pre-1960. I mean, it's ridiculous, the comments that come out of her. And it's the old communist playbook, divide and conquer, which is why people are saying, I'm having people text me instant message last night. They're saying, Mark, what the hell's going on? I mean, between, all this inflation, the economic issues you talked about, millions coming across the border, radical Hamas wing protesting in Chicago. We'll get into that a little bit later. These negative speeches. I mean, let me tell you one thing, folks. They say this convention is all about joy. We're so joyful. The first 2 nights of this convention, I've seen a bunch of anger, a bunch of people ticked off, and boy, do they ever want to tear down this country. You're not kidding. When they say it, believe what they're saying because it's true. Now, I did watch Barack Obama, and Barack Obama, for those of you who may not like him, I get that, but the man is an orator. He is an exceptional speaker. I may disagree a lot with what he says, but he was able to bring the house down last night. The question is, will that move the needle for Kamala Harris? And I'm going to give you an answer. I do not think so. We'll talk a little bit about polling later on, but I have a sense that the American people are seeing through this BS. They have spent so much time at this convention bashing Donald Trump. Why are they doing that? Because they are economically and politically bankrupt of ideas. They have no solutions to problems that they created. Think about this for a minute. They tried to blame Trump last night for derailing an illegal immigration bill that would have allowed 5,000 people a day to continue crossing. That's ridiculous. They tried to blame Donald Trump for inflation. Everybody knows that's ludicrous. when Trump was in office, we had inflation under 1.5%. It's gone up 20.2 under Biden. So on the two main issues that most voters care about, the economy and border security, again, Donald Trump wipes the floor with them. Now, then in addition to that, they go through the standard, this convention's really, this shouldn't be called the Democratic National Convention. It should be called the Democratic Abortion Convention, because they spend half their time talking about an issue that only 20% of the public thinks is an important issue. Yeah, I get it. It's a big selling point for Democrats. But Don, you, as most guests come on this show have said, you want an abortion in this country, you can get it. They're manufacturing issues to try to paint the Republicans into a corner. And my sense is, Daniel, that voters are waking up to this. I sense that because I'm looking at Trump out on the campaign trail. And, they always try to call Trump a racist. I mean, that's the other thing. Oh, Michelle's talking about black jobs. Well, I got news for you. The presidency's a black job, blah, blah, blah. Trump doesn't talk like that at all. And black men are gravitating towards Donald Trump because they know that economically their life was better off when Donald Trump was president. So Trump goes to someplace in Michigan. What does the media try to do? They go, oh, well, that's where a racist was talking from. Madam Producer, let's play the clip of Donald Trump stating who the last presidential candidate that campaigned in that great state was.
Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you for coming. Campaign attacking you for being in his town because they say there are white supremacists here a month ago. They're Democrats.
Who was here in 2021? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I love how all the cops are laughing in the background.
Daniel, take it from there. You're on cue.
Well, they always try to paint him as a white supremacist, and they keep repeating all of the lies, even though they've been debunked, like the very fine people lie, right? That he called these white supremacists in Charlottesville very fine people. And you watch the 30-second clip and he outright condemns white supremacy, says that should be totally, done away with. But they keep repeating it as if it's true. You can go to Snopes, you can go to even fact check, you can check all these places and they say, nope, he didn't say that, he didn't mean that. And yet the Democrat talking points still get out there and repeat these lies in the same way that they keep saying he wants to promote Project 2025 when he has disavowed Project 2025. And that has also been debunked. And yet the Democrats keep repeating it and repeating it. They keep trying to paint him as a racist. They keep trying to paint him as a person who wants to take away health care. None of that is true, but it's just, I guess, the little Hitler-esque approach of just keep repeating the lie often enough and people will believe it. And sure enough, unfortunately, you do meet some people in the grocery store or get into a conversation with somebody, and they'll say, well, Trump said they were all very fine people, and they have believed the lie. So my take on it is that, Mark, they keep repeating the lie because they know that 25 to 30% of the population are going to believe them, even though it is a lie. And I think they need to keep their base that upset in order to keep them glued.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And everything that they seem to be talking about at their convention is geared specifically to their base, which represents only 27, 28% of the voting population. Anyhow, we're going to take, your points are spot on there, Daniel. We're going to take our mid-course break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the right things that Donald Trump is doing and talking about while this Democratic just garbage convention is going on, where they're spewing nothing but hatred and lies. We'll be back in 90 seconds with positive news from the Trump camp.
Don't let them win. Patriot TV is committed to delivering the truth. America's new network for patriots is growing fast, and we'd love you to join us as a member of Patriot TV. Your support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver unbiased reporting, thought-provoking discussions, and insights you won't find anywhere else. From in-depth interviews to behind-the-scenes footage, Patriot TV brings you closer to the voices shaping our nation's future. Whether it's political developments, cultural shifts, or global affairs, Patriot TV keeps you informed and empowered. As a member of Patriot TV, you'll get perks like personal invitations to exclusive Patriot TV events, where you can gather and network with like-minded Americans. We'll also host online events throughout the year with General Flynn, who's committed to host live Q&A webinars where callers like you can ask him questions and get real answers. Access to these events will be members only, so go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. We have a great membership option starting at just $9.99 a month, or save with our annual membership for only $99, or take advantage of the best value, the 2-year membership for just $159. Go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. Do your part to make sure the truth gets out to all patriots and help ensure future programming. Become a member today. Just go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member, join today.
And we're back. And folks, don't forget, click that Patriot Defenders button. Become a member of Patriot.tv. We have great things coming for you, like behind-the-scenes interviews with General Flynn, where you're going to be able to do Q&As, a big retreat that we're going to do in Florida in the winter, where you're going to be able to meet likewise conservatives, and hopefully we have Donald Trump in office by then. All right, listen, we talked before the break about things that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have been doing. And just over the past 2 days, going back to that clip that you saw right before the break, Trump was specifically in Michigan talking about his support for the police when Comrade Kamala is advocating defunding police. No, we're not making this up. She's actually said it. You've heard it on this show enough where we play that Dave McCormick video ad where she talks about defunding the police and reimagining the police. Folks, when you have reimagining police, let me tell you something. That's just code word. They want to cut funding. They want, they're letting criminals out. You steal $950 in California, it was like we were joking. They bring a calculator in there. No, they don't even arrest you for it. And this is all across the country. There are more murders in Chicago where they're holding this convention than there is in Afghanistan. It's that crazy. So what is Trump and J.D. Vance doing besides talking about illegal immigration, the economic issues, which Trump has substantial leads on? Now they're talking about safety and security, and Trump has made no bones about it. He will put more police officers in the streets when he's elected. And secondly, Daniel, before I turn it over to you, in their speech in North Carolina today, they talked national security on an international level and his relationship with Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin. Do you think Xi or Putin really respect Biden or Harris? Hell no, they don't respect them. They never would have gone into Ukraine if that hadn't been the case. So Trump can talk about the fact when he was president, we had low inflation, a secure border, we had no wars breaking out, and the country was respected. Daniel, we certainly don't have those policy positions under this current administration, and Harris and Biden are tied at the hip on these policies. I've seen nothing new coming out of her.
I would actually say that she's probably farther left than Biden when it comes to those policies, which is really scary. And you take a look at her resolve. I don't think she has very much resolve. And you point out the relationship that Trump has and had, and I would guess it still has, with Ping and Putin and all that. And look how many presidents have stepped into North Korea, right? So here, I think I'm reminded of the movie Cool Runnings, a great show, by the way, and very kid-friendly and teaches great lessons. But there is that one little section in there where he says, "You're a badass mother who don't take no crap off of nobody." And I think when our leaders in the world look at Trump, they see that, and he's a badass who's not going to take no crap off of nobody. And so they know that, so they're not going to start any trouble. We were told when the 2020 election was going on that we needed to get rid of Trump so America could restore its status in the world. And the exact opposite we know has happened. People laugh at Biden and what he's done, and I think they would equally laugh at a Kamala presidency as well. I personally think that if she were to get into office, they would be even more encroachments, if that's maybe a good word, into more people wanting to take more territory and testing the resolve of the United States. With a Donald Trump presidency, yes, he's going to stand firm. He's going to make sure that things are happening. I do have a question for you, if I may ask. In 2020, we had the Black Lives Matters riots and the Antifa riots. We had Chad up there in the Seattle area, Chop, whatever their name was. And so Trump was being advised to hold back and not to send in the National Guard. I believe that if Trump gets reelected, that those same characters are going to start stirring trouble again, maybe even worse than they did the first time. Do you think that Trump is going to not hold back? He's going to send in the National Guard and shut those people down?
100% I do. Absolutely. I mean, he'll give them their First Amendment rights to protest, unlike the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party's doing in Chicago. You know, they had 53 people arrested last night. Why? Because they were not peaceful protests. As long as you exercise your right under the Constitution, the First Amendment, Trump will not do anything. He'll let them do what they're going to do. But the minute that there is violence, properties attacked, buildings burned, he will, again, National Guard is generally within the state purview, not the federal government. But if states are, if that situation happened, again, it's hypothetical, we don't know, but my guess would be Trump would lean on state governors to activate the Guard if it got out of hand. And if it didn't, there would probably be some federal presence that I think he would do. Because when you look at, just like we were talking about, Trump emulates strength, he emulates security. And if you take the average American, what they're looking for, doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Everyone basically wants some economic security. They want to feel that they're safe in their neighborhoods and that the country is going to be protected. Because, again, you look at what's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. Ukraine is launching drones at Moscow. They have literally taken the fight to the Russians in their own territory. What could happen, with Xi Jinping and Taiwan? Do you think he's going to... Xi Jinping or Putin have any respect for Democrats? No, they don't. And look at what they're trying to do in Israel right now. Blinken's over there just begging to get a deal done. And, the policy, the administration, which used to be ironclad for Israel under Trump. I mean, we didn't have this stuff happening. Now you do. I mean, can you imagine this, Daniel? I mean, do you think under a Trump administration, we would have seen the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party protesting against Biden and Harris with, I don't know, whether 20,000, 30,000 protesters in Chicago, but they're out every night. And the media is doing their damnedest to cover it up, make it seem like it doesn't even exist. So, yes, to answer your question, Trump will do what it takes to protect us. I want to move to another story with you today that you and I talked about, and this sort of expanding, but there are reports out that Robert Kennedy and his running mate will be dropping out of the race this Friday. Now, we're going to play a video where his running mate, she talks about the pros and cons of doing it. This video was recorded before news outlets like NBC News, ABC News, CNN, etc., broke the story. So, Madam Producer, why don't we key up this video, and then Daniel and I will give you further analysis on this post the video.
What my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines. I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November. And if that means that we stay in, and, there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as a party. 71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access, which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning. So, there's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Well, what that clearly tells me, Daniel, from looking at that, I believe they will drop out on Friday because if you look at the polling numbers right now, they don't look like they're going to hit that 5% number. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, this Democratic ticket, this is the most radical ticket in the history of our country. I mean, I thought back when Barack Obama was president, the Biden presidency was so far to the left of Obama, it almost makes Obama look like a centrist, and it makes Bill Clinton and John Kennedy look downright conservative. So I think even the Kennedy supporters are realizing that if they perceive they're helping Harris, they're not politically in her camp whatsoever. And they saw what the Democratic Party did to try to clear the field of Joe Biden. So the question I have for you, Daniel, is they made it sort of obvious they're going to drop out. But they haven't affirmed that they're going to support Trump. But reading these tea leaves, how do you think it affects the race if they do come out and support Trump?
I think it would be a good thing if they did, actually. I watched that clip and I thought, she's probably not discussing this publicly unless it is seriously on the table. And I understand that after she did that interview and it came out that a huge fundraiser for the Kennedy campaign was canceled because people said, well, if you're thinking about dropping out, why should I go and give money to you? So even if they were still thinking about it when she made that interview, if I could use the phrase, she kind of shot themselves in the foot and committed themselves to dropping out when she said that, because now nobody wants to donate. And that is the big key to any kind of party. In fact, I remember I had Larry Schweitzer, historian, on my show one time, and he was talking about how third parties will never succeed because you have too many people in this country who really don't pay attention to the politics too much, but their daddy was a Democrat or their daddy was a Republican and their granddaddy was a Democrat or their granddaddy was Republican, and they may not follow the issues, but they're going to be a good family person and support that party because their daddy was and their granddaddy was. And that's what they do. So they'll deep pocket, they'll write out a check for, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 to that campaign just to make the ghost of daddy and the ghost of grandpa happy. But nobody's doing that for a third party. So lots of deep pocket money gets donated to the Republican and Democrat parties that come from family values, not from issues. So a third party is never going to have that kind of deep pocket money, and that's why third parties don't exist. And people have said, well, what about the Republican Party emerging with Lincoln? They forget that the Whig Party had basically fizzled out and was in shambles, and the Republican Party was birthed out of that. So you have a whole different scenario there. coming up with a whole new third party, I don't think would work. I happen to agree with Dr. Larry Schweitzer on that, and I don't think that they should stay in the race as independents. I think they should get out. I do think that they should openly support Trump. I think it would send a huge message to people to say, this is how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be.
Yeah, I concur with you on that. You're spot on. Hey, we're going to take our final break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some measures states are doing to secure the 2024 election and make it a fair election. Daniel's got some opinions on that. I want to go over some recent polling that came out too. Folks, this race is tight as a tick, and the markets indicate as such. Be back in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
And we're back. Daniel, there was some interesting things happened today. We got word that the Department of Justice is trying to take a case directly to the Supreme Court against the state of Arizona, which has a rule that you have to, when you register to vote, you have to document that you are a citizen to register to vote. I mean, that seems fairly common sense. But of course, Democrats don't want that. Now, in Arizona, you can actually vote in the presidential election. You can't vote for any other state offices, but you can vote for the presidential election only. And in the last election, about 11 or 12,000 people voted in the presidential election only. Now, we don't know who they voted for, but they voted. Now, the margin that Biden won Arizona by last time was 10,000 votes. So the Supreme Court trying to change Arizona election law, this is just another example of the lawfare that Democrats are doing. Got popular governors like Glenn Youngkin, he's at 59% in Virginia. Virginia tightened their election voting laws. They stripped people off the voting rolls who were not properly documented, and they went to mandatory paper ballots to verify. So I know you had some opinions about this, Daniel, about what the Democrats are doing. They're pumping up their legal base with people like Mark Elias and others. Regardless of this election, my sense is if the Democrats lose, you think about what Trump did last time is going to be small potatoes. They're gearing up with an army of lawyers. I hope, Daniel, this election is fair, clean, and can be validated. Obviously, we're pulling for Trump to win it and hope he wins by wide enough margins where there's no doubt. But the Democrats are gearing up for a fight.
They definitely are. You mentioned Mark Elias. I know that the story that I read on that showed that they were actually bragging that the Democratic legal team for the 2024 election is 10 times bigger than what they assembled for 2020. That tells us what you were just talking about, the lawfare. They're going to employ it big time. You talk about Arizona. Here we have people who can come in and just vote, right? you mentioned the Department of Justice. I don't know if you saw the article where the congressional committees found that Joe Biden had committed impeachable offenses, but they weren't going to prosecute. It was very definitive evidence that he committed impeachable offenses. One of the things that they found was that the Department of Justice under Joe Biden blocked investigations into Hunter Biden, blocked investigations into Joe Biden. The Department of Justice did that. And they were basically obfuscating. They were trying to deflect information away. So that why is our Department of Justice, which is supposed to be upholding U.S. law, why are they trying to cover up illegal activities? So I think that would give us an answer as to why our Department of Justice at the federal level is trying to get Arizona to not follow our federal law that you have to be a citizen to vote. So this is really kind of crazy to me. If you don't have a citizenship, you don't have skin in the game, you should not be allowed to vote. If you're going to allow anybody to vote, then really we don't have a country. It's just bottom line.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're exactly right about that. And that's why some of these states have taken steps to tighten up voter rolls, to make sure that Republicans are not caught flat-footed in this election like they were before. They're going to be poll watchers at all these precincts. There's like 3,200 counties across the United States, and the Republicans will be well represented. So let's hope this election comes off fair. Trump's even said it himself. He says, I want a fair and free election, because, they always try to pin the donkey on Trump. Oh, he's going to fight it. He's going to fight it. No, all Trump has said is he wants fair and honest elections. And I think every American should want a fair and honest election with American citizens having one vote. And if they vote, regardless of whether it's for Republican, Democrat, or Independent or somebody else, that they have one vote, those votes are counted properly. That's what we're looking for. All right, let me dive into some polling stuff. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dan. You had a comment on that, Daniel.
Yeah, I did. So a couple things, two things there real quick. One is paper ballots. I want to strongly urge everybody in this country to contact your county clerk and ask them to get a contingency plan in place for paper ballots. We know that the deep state does not want Donald Trump back in office. So who knows what one of these rogue countries might do to try to disrupt our electoral system, which is heavily electronic now. Who knows? There might be an EMP blast or something. They might try to sabotage our election system. If we have a backup system of paper ballots, we have a much better chance of having a free and fair election. And the other thing is also, and this is just a prayer factor, pray that we don't have one of these plandemics and we have mandated drop boxes. I have several friends who were down there, and suddenly on the day of the voting, all the ballots coming in, and suddenly there's these huge big buckets of ballots coming in, and it's overwhelming and nobody knows where they came from. And so that is just suspect. So pray that we don't have these open drop boxes anymore.
Yeah, and the other thing I want voters on our side to realize is when you're eligible to vote, because a lot of states have early voting, don't wait till Election Day. Vote as early as you possibly can, whether that be a lot of states have weekend voting where you can vote on the weekends. They open up 2 or 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Early voting, they have mail-in voting. Again, let's follow the rules, but play by the rules. If the rules allow you to do it, do it. Do not, under any circumstance, wait until Election Day. And we said this over and over. Why? Because once you've voted, then the parties will be able to see that you voted, and they're not going to have to focus precious resources on you. They'll know you've already voted. They can focus their resources on other people. So that's my sermon on voting. And even Donald Trump is supporting that now. So that's a big change over where we were in 2020. And I think it's a change for the better. Now, let me give you a little bit of polling update and how the media spends it. Now, I haven't had time to really dive into this numbers, but I saw a New York Times piece came out today that said Donald Trump is now up by 7 points in Georgia. Well, I don't believe Donald Trump is up 7 points in Georgia, but I'll take the poll on its face value. Why do I say that? Because the Real Clear Politics average of recent polling in Georgia has had Trump up 1. I've seen some polls where he's up 2. 7 seemed to me to be a little bit of an outlier, but I'm thinking if he's up 7 in Georgia, then that Harris honeymoon, the bounce, the glorification is over. And my suspect, and I firmly believe this, is that she will get 0 bounce coming out of this Democratic convention. Trump didn't get a big bounce coming out of his either. I think she gets 0 bounce. Matter of fact, I think she may have peaked the day before the Democratic convention started, this past weekend. Why do I say that? Because I believe it happened. I don't think Trump's up 7, but here's a good indication, folks, and this is why you watch Patriot TV Election Edge. What does CNN and some media outlets do? Well, when they saw that that number came out, they said, you know, Kamala Harris is doing better than Joe Biden. Biden was losing to Trump by 10 in Georgia. Folks, that may be true in a handful of polls, but it was never that bad. The fact is, Georgia's going to be a tight race, and if Trump wins it, he'll likely win it 1 to 4 points. Okay, in politics, a win's a win. Doesn't matter if you win a state by 10,000 votes, 0.2%, or by 1 million votes. The same number of electoral votes that state's allocated, you get. We don't elect presidents with popular votes. So that was, again, the media trying to spin it such that, oh, she's doing better. You and I know damn good and well that's not true. Second little polling nugget for you. Virginia came out and it shows Harris up 3. And then, well, Mark, why is that good news? Because Virginia is traditionally a Democratic state. Before Biden dropped out, it was about even. So if she's only +3 in Virginia, that tells me that the trends that these polls have showed have likely reversed, topped out, and even the betting markets, Daniel, are now showing this race is dead even. In the Real Clear Politics average, 49.3% chance for each of them. And in another betting poll online, Trump actually has pulled ahead 52-48. Daniel, got about a minute and a half left. What are your thoughts on where this race stands right now? What does Trump have to continue to do to win this race?
I think Trump needs to keep doing what he's doing, and that's get out there and talk to the people face to face. People love him. When he shows up someplace, people show up to hear him. I know when I heard him speak, the whole room, and I mean, I grew up, my teenage years were in the 70s. Mark, I was at rock concerts 3-4 times a week, right? And the electricity in the air in the room before the band comes on is palpable. It was nothing compared to the room waiting for Donald Trump. The room was buzzing with like 220 volts the whole day. And he really is an electric guy. Now, that being said, I'm against the cult of the personality. The reason I think Trump can win is if he stays on the principles of the Constitution, the righteousness of what this country was created as. If he stays with that, he keeps the people, because I think God's law written on our hearts, we resonate with that. It's the selfish people who are looking at the Kamala Harris going, give me the free stuff. It is the people who are listening to the Lord going, okay, this is written on my heart. That resonates. I want that. That's what I think is going to be the people will be following.
Daniel, I want to thank you for joining me today. Your insights and analysis have been valuable. Folks, it's going to come down to this. Are people going to vote on the issues, the economy, illegal immigration, crime, security, or is our nation going to make a vote for president based upon pop culture, vibes, and joy, which there is no joy at that Democratic convention? We'll be back tomorrow. That's it for Election Edge today. Follow us on X. Follow us on YouTube. We'll see you tomorrow on Election Edge.